Hello, my friends. I am Miskatu Mask. The time of this recording is 3:38 a.m., February 10th, 2026. This shall be Coffee Hour The Dark Age, Episode 3. Did you notice? In that statement, there was 3 threes. Metzen smiles in the reflection of the flaxseed oil, drenched in Prozac shavings. So the first one I don't do a pre-recorded script for, though I'm going to keep this quite short nonetheless. This is simply an update and kind of an idea of where we stand at the moment. So in the last coffee hour, I told you that shit's fucked and fucked's shit. Well, that really hasn't changed that much. The only difference is that at some point today, my grandmother should be coming back home. She has done pretty much no rehabilitation. She is incapable of turning in bed, incapable of doing pretty much anything at all. She's pretty much entirely incapacitated. She also has an unknown urinary tract issue or something like that. Like incontinence is quite common with strokes, but that's not what this is. And usually it resolves within 10 days or so. If it doesn't resolve within 10 days or so, it is said that the rate of mortality is extremely high within 3 months. I've read a number of papers that state this, and by extremely high, I mean that at least 50-60% of people seem to die for whatever reason. Reasons are not given. There wasn't any reasonings why that I could see in many cases. But she doesn't have incontinence. Hers is, I don't know, it's different, but strokes fuck with your body is ultimately the takeaway from this situation, and its danger has not passed. So, because of the fact that she's completely incapable of looking after herself at all, we are going to have pretty much around the clock healthcare workers coming in to do the basics, right? Like get her in and out of bed, help her dress, and things like that. But the vast majority of work outside of that is, of course, going to fall on my shoulders. I've already had to do a lot for her, mostly in part because she's been so lethargic and lazy, which is partially why we have this problem now. So before that was cooking, cleaning, making her beds, opening and closing windows and curtains, picking up the phone when it rings and handing it to her, all this kind of shit. So that's just going to increase, let's go with 3. 3 is a good number. It's going to increase threefold at this point. So yesterday we went through the ocean of logistics, but it wasn't quite as much logistics as I had been told. She was going to get a mechanized lift or a sling or something like that to help them get her out of bed. But I was informed that somewhere towards the weekend, they were able to get her on her feet, and she was able to use her walker for a few steps. But they did not pursue this. They did not pursue rehabilitation for walking. And I read that with the incontinence and stuff like that, there are exercises and things you can do to work on the muscles, because it's usually a muscle problem, and to get back control. And as far as I know, they have not done any of that either. In fact, apparently somebody threatened her and said, "I will send you to a care home right away." I'm not sure what that was about. I wasn't given specifics, but that's what I was told. So it doesn't sound like it was a terribly pleasant experience. And it doesn't sound like they were really interacting too much to help her. But nonetheless, we are now on a different clock. They have brought over a hospital bed, and we only can have that for a short amount of time because it's not free. And it will be returned within a couple months. The hospital bed is necessary, not really for her, but for the care workers, because a normal bed's kind of too low. So this bed needs to be raised up so they can do whatever. And they will not help her if she doesn't have it. Now you see she's on a slightly longer timer, but nonetheless a timer to get her shit together somehow. So you might construe this as not a worst case scenario. She did not end up in a care home, and she didn't die. Yet. But it's a near worst case scenario, where she has come home, having made basically no improvement whatsoever since the stroke began. That is now over a month ago. The first month and the first 3 months are the most critical time for recovery and the most critical time to be aggressively pursuing rehabilitation, which is why they apparently have been very non-interactive. Kind of like how they missed the mini strokes entirely when I sent her to the hospital early in the month of December with delirium and hallucinations. And they did CT scans and everything. I didn't find anything, but it was there because those were mini strokes. Like I said in the last cover here, there are nuances to this story. And this situation was entirely avoidable, both on her behalf and on the behalf of our incompetent medical system. And like I said, again, this is far from the 10th, 20th time that their incompetence has been on brazen display in a manner that has personally affected me or people that I know in real life alone. Much less the people elsewhere in the country that I am associated with. It's not new. It's not new at all. The healthcare system has actually always been shit. Don't let people gaslighting you into thinking that Canada's healthcare system is poor nowadays just because of all the new Canadians that we have. No, actually, it's always been shit. Always been shit. Always been shit. I'm going on 40 years old. I cannot remember a time I've interacted with our healthcare system that it really felt like it was not shit. It has failed me in every step of my life. It has failed her in every step of her life. It's a fucking disaster. And now that we're past that particular point, we'll move on to some other subjects before I let you go. I've got some coffee here. We'll have a few discussions, okay? So I just released 2 major videos, okay? The first was the Apex X shooter discussion. And what just went up was the Apex X aesthetics discussion. Both of these turned out shorter than I really wanted them to be. For the simple fact is that although there's other subjects I could have discussed in them, I'm not of the mental state to do so. I can't really form coherent thoughts that well. I'm not really in the state to be doing this kind of stuff. In fact, I wasn't even able to do first-party verification of the aesthetics video. I also have a 5.5 hour long D&D reflections video that has been sitting there awaiting processing and verification, as in it's fully edited and ready to release. But it needs to be verified to ensure that it is at least coherent. And there isn't anything in it I need to remove, particularly spoilers of the current game, because that has made it in and prompted some re-encodes already. The problem is, I don't have 5 hours in my day where I am a fucking functional person, much less awake enough to actually verify. My insomnia is very bad. I've been getting maybe 30 minutes to an hour of sleep a day. And it wasn't very good early into December as well, with all the other shit that was going on. So it's not very good. I am working on another Contemplations of Learning Naraka video. This will involve all the deaths in Immortal War, which I have been treating as a customs ground over the last close to a month now. And then I'll talk about Zenda and playing her a little bit, and some other stuff. HK has quit the game, and Monkey does not play very much anymore. I think he's kind of burned out of it, and also the recent seasons for the game have been so bad, especially with Lee and the other changes they're making to the maps and stuff like that, and just in general the stagnation of the game and their refusal to fix it is turning off a lot of people. So I would have liked to have had some more general gameplay videos, but seeing as the only gameplay I can play right now, because Spirit Well doesn't even exist anymore, is ranked solos and Immortal War solos, and those are just torture. I'm not very encouraged to continue playing this game very much right now. And now, even if I want to continue the grind, as futile as it is, I've got all this real life stuff going on, right? But I'll keep signing in. I'll keep trying to make content for this, but it could be quite strained, and it'll be hard to arrange, the duos and stuff like that at this time. So it's just the way things go. I have been considering what other kind of content I could produce, record, or perhaps old content I have created in the years past that may or may not be YouTube suitable. And, well, there's so much of that content it's hard to kind of go through, but I could tell you most of it won't make it. I've actually done a few test uploads of some stuff. We'll see if I ever publish them. But the problem is it's going to be kind of scattered, right? You're not going to get the full experience, and I don't really think that's really that good. So, I don't know. We think things through. So the other major video to create is the overworld progression video. Now, that's actually probably going to go into the T2 discussion. And the T2 is the Type 2, and it's going to be the revision to the Apex X concept as a direct result of idealizing the consideration of making it a commercial product. Now, this comes with like 69 attached caveats and notations and citations, and for reasons I probably don't even need to tell you. It's a big shift, and the project hasn't been really active for quite a while, and probably like 50 or more % of the graphics assets in the project are ported assets that need to be replaced, and there are no commercial assets to replace them with. And then you've got the player character, which was difficult even when I exercised the absolute most resources that could be found on the internet. At this time, I am contacting various sellers or distributors of things outside of the Unreal spectrum, looking to get my hands on base meshes or clarify licensing regarding other assets that I did not use in the past. And so far I have yet to receive a single reply, and some of them I've been actually waiting several weeks. So there are people who, for example, on Jinxie or Gumroad, who claim to be professionals running a shop, and they have a contact, and you send them an email and you don't get replies for weeks at a time. It kind of says a lot, but nonetheless, that's the ball game you got to play, right? You just got to hope. That's all you can do. So that's scouting for a base mesh that will probably take me a year or two minimum to get to where we are right now, because the ears and tail and hair and all like that need to be redone as well. And yeah, like I said, there's a lot of strings attached to this ambition, right? There's also the fact that HKS wants me to make this co-op, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet. But if I decide to, one character model isn't enough. Now, we've always talked about the character model in this project, but now we're talking about monster assets as well, opponents, mobs. And I did an inventory of all the assets I have the legal ability to distribute or work with, including assets that are ports from other games that the people who have ported it have put under public license that I could use. That obviously I will have to change very significantly if I was going to use them. And there's not that many. Let's be honest. Amongst the third-party assets outside of Fab, I have like 3 or 4 so far. And within the Unreal ecosystem right now, I have probably like 10, 12 creatures, most of which who don't have suitable animations. I have some animals, mostly the stuff from Malbers, or things I had hoped to put on Malbers animations with retargeting, but never attempted, because when I attempted early into Unreal 5, it just did not work. And I don't think retargeting has not actually improved that much since then. Some of the user interface has been streamlined, but beyond that, it's yeah, not good. Not good at all. So, oh, I have a shop list here. Yes, so this is something I wrote out in case we see stuff. So the other thing is I am using some third-party assets for sounds, some of which I have commercial licensing for, some of which I do not. The reality is that I haven't done sound engineering in great extent since Black Sun, actually. Black Sun was the last time I did that, and that was over 10 years ago. So it's not just that I need to get back into this and relearn sound engineering. I need to find source assets I can legally do so with. And I'm actually going to upgrade my tool set. So I mentioned before I wanted to go into Reaper. I've used Audition 1.5 for 99% of my audio editing, but with Black Sun Retribution and a lot of the stuff afterwards, like the Harry Potter BDSM album, I actually use Vegas almost exclusively because the multi-track editing in Vegas is just 1,000 times better. So Reaper is kind of like a blend between Audition 1.5 and Vegas. It supports a lot of the kind of multi-track editing capabilities that this has. But in fact, I can even show you here. And it obviously this is just an evaluation, right? Like, as it says, this is not a free product. HKS told me it only cost about $60. But actually, if you want to safely use this for a commercial product, you're looking actually past 200. That's USD, and that is not happening. Not for a very, very long time. So I have done some experimentation with it, but it's got a while to really enter. There's some limitations with it. For example, in Audition, I have this dB thing here on the side is very, very useful because, especially for like D&D or sound effects or whatever, I like to have them as close to 100% normalization as possible. But normalizing stuff like that's pretty destructive. The Swedishman suggested this plugin here called Radaz Maximizer. This is very, very powerful and very, very useful if you want to do some kind of loudness war stuff, but without the crushing and distortion typical of loudness war, as long as you're very level-headed with this. And so taking a look at the files and the peaks and where they're stopping at in here is very, very important. And you cannot do that at a glance within Reaper, actually. So it is very limited in that regard. And there's extra steps for some stuff in it. Also, when you put in stuff in the FX track, it doesn't affect the waveform in here. Whereas inside of here, if you were to apply this, you would see it affect the waveform, and then you can cross-reference this, and depending on what you're working with, you don't even need to hear it to know how much distortion there's going to be if you do something like that or whatever. So that's why I just stuck to Audition all these years, is just because it's the best tool. The newer versions of Audition did not really improve it at all. I think one of them did add a non-destructive workflow, like Audition 3 or 5.5, one of the ones I used before. But I've even used as recent as some of the CS editions, and there really wasn't any noticeable actual functional improvement to it. So, as is typical with Adobe products, of course, it's they turn everything to shit. And one of the rants you're going to briefly witness in the aesthetics discussion is I needed to make new textures for these furry characters, or really anything furry, animals or whatever, anything cartoony, hypothetically could be retextured to have a realistic texture. And the only way really to do this is with something like Substance Painter. Now, I was gifted Substance Painter 2 some years ago, and it has always been my expectation that I could use this for this purpose. So, as of a couple of days ago, I started researching what do I do to do this. And it was just by chance I came across a discussion of one of these VR chat people asking someone else how they made these realistic fur textures. And he said he was using a specific brush that was on Gumroad. I looked it up, and the author's note is that it only works with version 2020 or above. Some of the critical components do work in the old versions, but things like the smart material and stuff like that do not work. Now, I didn't entirely know what that was, so I had to look that up. And what this is just a planned obsolescence put in place when Adobe acquired Substance, because Substance wasn't a part of Adobe initially. Adobe is basically this giant sperm whale that just floats around aggressively coming on everything that is remotely shiny and just crusting it over. And then it sinks to the bottom of the ocean and it disappears. So things like After Effects and Photoshop and Audition and stuff like this are all regarded with reviled hatred by every single person who uses them, because Adobe turns it straight to shit. It's just like Autodesk. Autodesk is very much the same way. These large corporations that just buy things out and then destroy them. It's like a fetish for them. You know, it's kind of like NTR or humiliation. It's definitely like a sexual release for them to destroy things. So Substance is the exact same way. And it turns out that this version of Substance I have was like immediately deprecated by the 2018 version and so on and so forth. And this shit is not fucking cheap. And they go through the process of making sure that like new assets created in the other ones cannot be opened in the old ones. To this day, I can still open some newer PSDs and shit inside of Photoshop CS2, and it may not load all the fonts or effects or whatever, but I can still open it with the layers and shit. So things weren't like always like this, but Substance is like this. So I did research. I launched Substance, and Substance complains that my TDR, the GPU timeout, is too low. I actually elevated it to 6 seconds for Unreal for when I was experimenting with the Path Tracer before, because it would hang and sometimes it would TDR when it wasn't actually crashing the editor. And the reason why it does this is because I'm using it for a non-standard process of generating huge fucking images that are like 7K by 7K for D&D maps. And so it's very, very GPU memory intensive, and Unreal is kind of stupid. Because when it passes the GPU memory, it doesn't work with it, it just gives up immediately. It just crashes itself. So there was speculation that maybe there's a TDR thing involved, but no, it really is just that stupid. Substance, on the other hand, being an alleged professional tool, actually has no excuse. There's no reason it should be hard locking the GPU for 6 seconds. That's and then all the other research tells me that the newer versions just don't even work properly on AMD GPUs at all. Fucking brilliant. Adobe. And I told you that coffee hour tends to turn into rants, right? Like, this is the reason why I kind of stopped making them. If you do not know the world of production software, if you've never interacted with it, don't ever stay away from it. Just stick to your vibe coding. Just vibe code yourself a social media platform. It's very secure and safe. Don't worry about it, dude. Don't worry about it. Vibe code yourself an operating system. Stay away from all this age verification photo ID on our totally secure AI platform. Just trust me, bro, XD. Shit. That some people will blindly put faith in despite the founders of this software being actual pieces of shit. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, just put faith in the system, bro. And be a good conformant little cuck. What else is there to talk about? Hold on. I have a video for this. I gotta minimize that because it won't let me minimize this other shit. I don't have a video. I have a text file. Right, okay. So, this is done. Holy shit, we knocked another one off. I started doing my casting for this. We'll continue to make Naraka videos to what extent I can. The D&D summary videos, you know, I had intentions to have done the Albion one, or at least significantly started on it by now, but obviously, the last while kind of put a Debbie Downer on just about every fucking thing again, because it's the coffee hour curse. Like I said, the Reflections video is largely done, but it needs proper verification. And I mean proper verification. This one is big. There's an AI discussion in this. I talk a lot of technicalities in this. I show you how I make and render my maps. I show you how I edit and process tokens. I talk a lot about the homebrew. This is a lot different than the 23 Years Reflections video. There is a lot of discussion and reflections in it, but this is way more technical. It's like a full overview of a lot of how I make and run the games. And just, it's not a guide. Again, it's just an overview. It's how I do things. And a lot of what I do is not recommended. If you're starting D&D and you're thinking, oh, this is how I can run D... No, don't do it my way. There's a lot of potential heartache involved in the way I do data management and storage, and it has bit me in the ass a number of times, and it's mostly because I'm fucking lazy. So don't do it my way. There's other stuff too I don't really recall, but like, I don't know. It's hard to say what I will create. What demand is there out there for what content, I cannot say. But all I can say is today will be the beginning of a new era. The next chapter of this shit show. The stress will mount even harder. The chest pain will get even worse. The apnea will get even worse. The blood pressure will get ever higher. I will continue to be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And how much longer can I take this? I don't know. I don't know.